We will call the Finance Committee meeting of July 26th to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Johnson?
Present.
Mr. LaJess? Mr. Washington? Mr. Vickery? Mr. Hess? Mr. Mulcahy? Mr. Scott? Mr. Seroy? Mr. Hildebrand? Mr. Einfeld? Ms. Weber? Mr. Payton? Mr. Ritter?
Present.
Mr. Wheeler? Mr. Lear? We have a quorum.
All right, I did not receive any public comment. Is there any public comment to be made? Final call for any public comment? There is none. Okay, we have no presentations. So we will go to the approval of the minutes for June 20th, 2017. Have a motion to approve the minutes presented. Mr. Hess, a second. All right. I'm sorry. Mr. Vickery? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And we will go to item number 5, which is the highway with Mark Rogers. Mark.
He's going to read them into the record and do a motion to combine.
Good morning. I need to have my county engineer's pay estimates approved. So this morning I gave everybody a summary, and I will just go through those and read those for the record. So the first pay estimate I have is for our 2017 General Maintenance Supplement 1 payable to Decker Supply Company. This is for steel posts for our traffic signs. That amount is $9,257.75. Next is Gallagher Asphalt Corporation for our county general maintenance. This is for hot mix picked up at the plant with our trucks, and that amount is $276.00. Next is our county general maintenance for 2017 Supplement 4, payable to Grasso Construction Company. This is for oil and chip work being done on our county highways, and that amount is $117,802.71. Next is our county general maintenance for 2017, payable to Kankakee Valley Construction Company. This is for hot mix asphalt picked up at their plant with our trucks, and that amount is $1,288.95. Next is our county general maintenance for 2017, payable to Prairie Material Sales. This is for road mix picked up at the quarry, and that amount is $2,596.55. Next is our county general maintenance for 2017, payable to Vulcan Materials. This is for road mix picked up at the quarry with our trucks, and that amount is $1,106.19. Next is Norton Road District, Section 17-090's GM Supplement 1, payable to Grasso Construction Company. This is for oil and chip work being done in Norton Township, and that amount is $194,897.10. That's the total amount. The Township MFT portion is $125,223.46. Next is Norton Road District, Section 08-09106-01-BR. This is payable to Reber Construction Company. This is for a bridge being constructed in Norton Township, and this is split between 3 funds: Township Bridge Program, County Bridge Funds, and Norton Road District Funds. And the amount we're paying total is $64,251.45. $51,401.15 is being paid by the state in the Township Bridge Program. $6,425.15 is being paid by County Bridge, and $64,225.15 is being paid by Norton Road District. And the last one I have is our county bridge 13-00300-00-BR. This is for the bridge on County Highway 19 near Grant Park, and that amount is $55,597.23. That was the same one. That was one of the
Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A motion to combine and approve these bills.
I take a second. Mr. LaJess. All right. Any discussion or questions on this? All right. If it's Mr. Hess.
Did I miss the Norton one down on the bottom?
The Norton one is the same section as that's in the county joint bridge. It's
Okay.
just it's coming out of 3 funds.
3 funds. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion for Mr. Rogers? All right. If there is none, we will take a roll call vote.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Lejes? Mr. Washington? Mr. Vickery? Mr. Hess? Mr. Mulcahy? Ms. Weber? Mr. Payton? Mr. Ritter? Mr. Wheeler? Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 6 for the auditor's office, Mr. Lee. And can I have a motion to combine and approve the monthly claims? Mr. Mulcahy, a second. Mr. Lejes, thank you. And we will do a roll call vote.
No, oh yeah. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Lejes? Mr. Washington? Mr. Vickery? Mr. Hess? Mr. Mulcahy? Ms. Weber? Mr. Payton? Mr. Ritter? Mr. Wheeler? Motion carries.
Mr. Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. For the month of June, this report, as you well know, just to reiterate, is a cash basis report, and so it changes daily, really. And so for the month of June, total amount of claims, of course, is $7,959,041.39. I kind of trend out on the summary of the general fund and special funds, what it is year to date. The front sheet, though, just as a reminder, is at the point the report was run. But if you go 2-3 pages back, I believe, FY17, you'll see there's a variance in the 41,830,976 and the 42,094,094 that's on the front sheet, and that's simply voided checks and things like that makes those two different. So that's one of the ways I kind of bounce back and forth to see if there's any discrepancies. The variance hasn't been much, so in terms of if anyone's interested in the details and so forth, I can generate that, but nothing too extraordinary. Just a bunch of small things we saw transpire with whether it's improper calculations on mileage, sales tax on claims. There were 28 claims, I believe, that were not authorized by the department head and or elected official or their designee. And so we had to obviously do some rework and such there, because in my opinion, if it's not authorized by that department head, then it's not an approved claim, at least from that department, and then I can't recommend it to be approved to this body or reject it. So let's see, trying to think if there's anything else. Okay, that's about it for the regular claims. I will have a credit card report ready. We've seen some issues happening with the credit cards that I'm still doing some research on 2 items in particularly, and so I will bring that research back to this body. I think there's some issues with people spending beyond what either the per diem would allow, and then if they have a per diem, not turning in the receipts, and different things like that. So there are a couple of issues. I won't get into specifics here, but if anyone wants to talk to me about those, I'll be more than willing to do that. I know Chairman Wheeler is working with the State Attorney's Office to kind of codify our travel policy with the employee handbook and disseminate that information in tandem so that we don't have confusion, as it were, there. So anyway, we are working on those things. Any questions in general about the claims at all for the month of June? Okay. A lot of conversation has been had about Neopost, and that is the mail machine and the folder inserter. speaking with Chairman Wheeler and the elected officials and others, the folder inserter, that the stuffing and folding of envelopes and so forth will be outsourced by the treasurer and the assessor's office. We do have a breakdown. There's a proposal here that will save about 57, I think it's 5,700 and some change a month, or a year, excuse me, with a new contract. This information will be brought to the Finance Committee for a vote up or down, and then to the board for full approval to enter a new contract without using those services. And we'll also save within that 5,700 about $2,890 for a software that we haven't used and we're not going to use, but we're paying for it. So we found that through our work here, and so there'll be more to follow at the next meeting on that.
All right, and yes, Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your work on this. When we started this, it was more like reaching in the dark to see exactly what the savings would be if we kind of got the equipment that we actually was required for the job that we're doing here now. Things have changed over the last few years, and sometimes price doesn't equal cost, in the grand scheme of things. So one thing I'll say is there any way to bring this to the full board next month so we don't have to pay for one more month on this lease? Because I think maybe the full board could, if you could present to the full board what the savings is, and we've got everybody there together, I would say that this committee would probably, they're all members of the full board. So then we just don't have to waste another month on a lease that we're not using. We could move on it and be done at the end of that month.
I have no problem with that, okay. Chairman Wheeler.
Thank you.
So.
Any other questions for Mr. Lee on the monthly claims or the postage machine or printing machine? All right, then Andy wanted to address the auditor's office statutory duties.
Yeah, I just since it's been a source of discussion with in and around county government and board members and department heads, I just wanted to let everybody know that we have asked the Attorney General's office for an interpretation of one main auditor, a statute of the auditor's office regarding the general accountant and the keeper of the county's accounts. There's differing opinions on the breadth of that or the narrowness of that. We look back at when the finance department was established. It actually gave one of the duties to the finance department that says the general accountant, and that's against that statute. So both Jake and I have, ever since December, have been wanting clarification on that, and that is the path that we've decided to go, and look at that as hopefully the positive resolution on how to divide those duties up within the statute. So that's really was just to let finance know that that's where we're going. Hopefully they provide that clarity. Fingers crossed. So you never know what's going to come from Springfield. So, but hopefully at that point, and we just don't know when that's going to be. It's kind of a wild card. It could be tomorrow. It could be January. I mean, it's really a roll of the dice to see when it shows up. So just to let this committee know and everybody else that we're working towards that end, and that end really begins when we get that opinion from the Attorney General.
Okay.
So.
All right, thank you.
That's all I had.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Lee?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have a good day, everyone.
All right, we will go on to agenda item number 7, which is our insurance and HR and our staffing level reports with Ms. Mackin.
Good morning. All right, everybody has their staffing report in their packet. Just a reminder, the staffing report reflects what's in our payroll system. So unless we've received terminations, these are just the active ones. Consider too that counts may be a little different as far as some department heads are concerned because they might have some leave of absence going on within their department and they can't staff them at this time. But until their term, they are in our system. Even though they're on a leave, they could possibly be receiving time benefits as well as we're paying insurances. So, all right. So up in the left-hand corner, you have the time frame that it covers from June 28th through July 25th. And if you go down, I've highlighted the changes that's happened within this month. The first one begins with the 911 system, and they had lost one full-time employee, and they were able to hire that full-time employee's replacement, bringing their count the same at 31. Finance has lost 1 full-time person, so their count has dropped to 3. The maintenance department lost 1 full-time person. Their count is now at 10. Dropping down to corrections division, the sheriff correction clerical hired 1 full-time person, so their count is at 6. Correctional officers, they hired 1 full-time person during this time frame. Their count is at 111. And the medical staff lost 2 full-time people and hired 1 part-time person. Their count is at 15. So the movement has been 4 new hires, and we have 5 that have termed during this time period. So the current staff is at 510, and then you have your FTE there in the corner. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can't remember the number, but roughly how many of the, and if the sheriff's here, he may know, but how many of the COs are off on leave? Was that like a 6, 7, 8, or it was a higher number?
I know 1 has come back recently. The sheriff could probably answer that question.
Okay.
I'm not positive.
Okay.
I know probably around 3, maybe
Okay.
4.
A question for criminal justice.
Yes.
Then. We'll ask him.
Mr. Legess?
Yeah, we're in contract negotiations now with the correctional officers. And I thought the chief said that he was somewhere in the 80s on correctional officers. I mean, that's like 25.
That's a lot of people being gone. This is the count that's coming out of payroll. So maybe
Well,
terminations.
I knew they had some on medical, but
Mhm.
it's not. And also, I thought there were 3 lieutenants, and we showed 2. And then I was told that they were down to 1 chief.
Okay, I can verify that, and we
Well,
can
we can
talk to the sheriff?
Yeah, we talk to Mike.
sure.
when
And
when
the
he
sheriff
comes
and I
in.
can get together
Well,
and match
he's gonna
again.
come up here on the agenda, so we can ask him that.
Okay.
too.
Any other questions for Mrs. Mackin? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item number 8, which is the Treasurer's Office. Can I have a motion to combine and approve the County Treasurer's Report for June 17, County Collector's Report for June 17, and the monthly resolutions for August of 2017? Mr. Washington, a second. Mr. Ritter. And we will do, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, Mr. Africano.
Morning, everybody. Just wanted to have a couple things. Mobile home bills are on their way out this morning. And first distribution has been made. Second distribution will come up around August 10th. We'll make that. But what I wanted to point your attention to this morning is forfeitures. This stack represents 245 forfeitures. And what these essentially are, when a taxpayer buys our taxes and decides they don't want them and then looks for a way to get out of them, files a sale in error. And it's not hard to get, right? And so they come back to us. But the tax is still owing. And these 245 have never been put back on the rolls. So they've not been collected on. They haven't been taken back to sale. So this pile represents $1.45 million in outstanding property tax that is in the process right now of being put back on the rolls. People are getting notices. And if the notice isn't paid by a certain date, which will be in the fall, these will go to tax sale. And so we'll recoup some money. I don't know why it happened. Some of these came out of bankruptcy, never returned to paying, but we've been working on this for about 3 months. And so this is the list right here. We had a person who, what happened was when it was actually sort of a mistake. When I sent out tax bills, I made a configuration mistake on the tax bills. And so it printed for people who had forfeitures, it said, here's your tax bill, but by the way, here's your back tax. And people were like, well, what do you mean by back tax? Well, that led to our researching everything and said, well, we have all this back tax out there that hadn't been reapplied. So people didn't know they owed it or forgot about it or didn't care. So it led to the research that then brought this. And since those tax bills went out, we've probably collected $50,000 in back taxes for people that had a back tax account on their tax bill who said, oh my God, I owe $6,000 extra. Here's a check for that too. I want to be square. And so these will go out. Do I expect 1.45 million to be collected? No, I don't. But if we can get half of that collected or sold, that's money, income to the county. And frankly, it's income we're owed. And not us per se, the taxing bodies are owed it. So we're all owed it. So that's what I'm doing right now. So mobile homes going out, they will be due on the 29th of September. As usual, the second installment will be on September 1st. Tax sale is November 2nd. So this will all follow that process. But I'm just trying to kind of go through things and get them cleaned up, and things that are sitting out there that, you know, have money attached to them, try to get that revenue in. And I believe, I probably shouldn't say because I'm not 100% certain, but I think all hotel taxes this month were on time. So that's a good thing. That's all I have. Any questions for me?
Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know it wasn't on the agenda, but the that whole sale and error thing with the fixing the back pay, you know, on being able to.
Yeah, do you want me to?
The fund discussion, if you could just bring that back up and let the committee know that this is going to be, we're going to have to figure out what fund to take that out of. It would be helpful.
So
Not
what?
like we're going to take action today, but we just need to be thinking about
Well, we have to take action before. So here, what Andy's talking about is when it came in, as you know, that there was a staff position in the treasurer's office that had been unfilled, and that person was responsible for sale and heirs, working exclusively almost with tax buyers. And the sale and heirs didn't get done, and when we came in, there was a pile of mail that hadn't been opened, and I think there was $880,000 I think I brought to the committee of sale and heirs, which wasn't a tremendously big deal, but there was $65,000 in interest payments that the county had to make because they weren't done in a timely fashion, because some sale and heirs, when they come through the court, there's interest attached to them. So those obviously need to get done as soon as possible. So there was $65,000 expense that we incurred. What that $65,000 did was take us over our interest fund in the treasurer's office, which is specifically replenished through the tax sale, and took us over by that $65,000. Well, that money has been paid out of the treasurer collecting account, right? So that money has to be distributed to the taxing bodies. It's their money. So we now have a shortfall between what was in that fund, Steve, I believe this is correct, the interest fund, and what was totally expended. So I think it was, in rough numbers, 119 was in the fund, and we expended 188, 185, somewhere in there. So we're left with a shortfall, and Andy and I have been discussing how do we make that shortfall up, because we owe it to the taxing bodies, because it was taken from their money, from the collector account. So before the final distribution of the year, which will be in November, we will have to replenish that $65,000. And there's been talk, tort fund and other possibilities. I'm not sure. And perhaps some of the fees that we've been collecting that maybe weren't collected in the past, maybe there's a way to help use those. I mean, in a perfect world, I would like to see us, it would be a wash, that the extra fees generated out of the office by just collecting what's due to us would pay that 65, which then wouldn't leave the county on the hook for 65. Because what you have to realize is it's a taxing body's money, but failure to get done what had to get done cost the county. Didn't cost the taxing bodies. They'll eventually get their money. But since we didn't get it done, it cost us $65,000. So
Mr. Wheeler?
Thank you. And that, for this committee to think about, by, September, October, we need to have that solution blessed in this form so it can go on to approval at the full board, whether it's moving money. I'm not sure that it can be a tort solution because that's a separate levy collected for a different reason. But it could be the revolving loan fund money that we could use so it doesn't affect future and current budgets. Or like you said, it could be a combination of new fees that have been collected or surplus revenues in other areas, which is a word that usually we don't talk about, surplus revenues, in this committee. But we have to kind of figure out where that's going to be, but it has to be obviously before the next distribution in September. So,
and I guess I think George had something.
Mr. Washington?
My question is there any legislation or is there any method of fining the tax buyers when they keep returning these taxes that they purchased?
Well, Mr. Washington,
Period of time that they've had.
I wish there was, and it's something that's I continue to look at. What I think is if we can be as tough, according to the letter of the law, with the tax buyers, it would be a good thing, right? Tax buyers tell you if you make it too tough on them, they won't buy, right? But yeah, and turning it back actually costs more money for us. And I've talked to counties that have really gotten tough and their sales haven't gone down. We will do some things at this tax sale that will mitigate some of this loss you're talking about. We will flag all previous sale and heirs when we sell so that tax buyers understand that to go back and get another sale and heir, we're going to fight them. We'll encourage the state's attorney to fight. And if you come to court once and lose, it's really not financially worthwhile for those tax buyers to come fight again because it's a $50, $75 fee, but it really adds up over time. So we will flag that. And part of the job, my job, is to make sure things that go to tax sale won't come back as sale and heirs. So to, for instance, do something as simple as pull municipality taxes out of the sale. If you sell a municipality's tax, like St. Anne, we sold 6 parcels last time. Those are automatic sale and heirs because they don't owe it. Now they're supposed to claim their exemption status and do what they're supposed to do, but regardless, they don't owe it. It's coming back as a sale and heir. Do more researching of liens, because what happens is frequently we do a sale and heir on a mowing lien, on a $70 mowing lien. And I think we have to do a better job. I have to do a better job working with the council in different municipalities to understand what we all have, right? So does it make sense for Kankakee to get their $70 mowing fee, but at the same time lose $2,000 in taxes collected? So, but yes, it's very frustrating. It's an interesting group of people to work with. One last thing I did remember, and I don't want to speak too much about it. The escrow company, we have told them they owe us this $171,000. I think right now they claim they don't, and the chief of the civil division, Deb Garrigus, and her people are working on it. So hopefully we'll have a positive outcome on that.
Mr. Payton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On that question that George asked, is that a state law or a county law to put them in the position to create that stack?
It's a state law.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, unfortunately. And there's things that I will discuss with Andy going forward. There's just things when you get in the office you can't know until you're in. And for instance, mobile home bills, our levy, and don't quote me on this, but it's 185 million, somewhere in there. We process all of the mobile home bills and the amount of work it takes, and the total revenue is $270,000 on 185 million, right? And we're bound, unfortunately, by some state laws. It would be nice if we could create some ordinances that streamline that, but we can't usurp the state law. And again, it's amazing amounts of work for, yes, for no money. So, any other questions? Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 9, which is the Finance Department, Mr. McCarty.
All right, good morning. Chris is passing out the extra copies to everyone. The first, well, it's all one group today. The first section is our normal look at our monthly averages, the distribution, sales tax, income tax, use tax, inmate, bed rental. So one thing that we discussed last month was our sales tax and an unknown drop, and however it came back up. So we'll continue to watch that trend. And then, as we all know, the state passed its budget. And one of the discussions that is coming through the Government Finance Officers Association is the income tax distribution. It's a little confusing. They're saying written in the state budget was a 10% decrease for the state fiscal year, which crosses our fiscal year. However, instead of 12 payments, they're going to do 14 payments, distributions out of that fund. So we might take a look at 5 and 5, but we'll see. Some of the discussion was, are they just going to catch up with the 2 months that they were behind, and then it's not any different. So we'll see. They did catch up. We are only 1 month behind now with income tax, as far as what we've received from this report. So the last number there, 263,150, we are waiting for. Everything else we have received. So we'll continue to watch that, and I'll update you as more information becomes available. But other than that, those are 2 specific communications. I don't know if anyone has any other questions on those regular reports before we go into the cash flow report. Other questions? No. All right, the very last page, then we'll go into the cash flow update. The very last page, now out through November. Before we go too far on the July, even though it says estimated, a lot of the information in July here is actual, so I'll identify it here for you. The property tax distribution is an actual number. The TAW payment has payback. The first payment has been made, $1,350,000. The additional highway payback the short-term borrowing that we did in April, we paid back plus $100,000, so that is completed. The payroll number is an actual number through last week's payroll, so both payrolls are included in that number. So the variables on the page are basically the two lines of receipts, inmate bed rental and miscellaneous receipts, as far as we still have the rest of the month here, the remaining days of the month to go, and the miscellaneous vendor payments. We're just working on those. Andy and I were this morning, so we'll update this, but so that information is correct. Now, I did estimate going forward now into September, October, November, under the inflows, the property tax distribution is Mr. Africano just mentioned he's going to do one in August. So certainly not trying to dictate this, just in looking back in previous years when approximate dollar amount showed up. We all know the second distribution happens, early September, but this is the remaining amount is calculated, so when it shows up may change, from this. And I took out the average small percentage of uncollected, just so we didn't count on that from previous years. What's outstanding right now, the things that we'll have to keep an eye on, are the second TAW payment, the final one for the current $3 million that's out there, plus estimated interest. Has to be paid back by September 30th. And then the bond payments, the majority of them go out end of October, beginning of November, because of a December 1st bond payment date for principal and interest are the main. And we also have in September, as asterisks, 3 payrolls in September that will hit, and then a higher IMRF payment in October that reflects the 3 payrolls in September. So it's a little bit easier to breathe right now as far as paying bills, and a lot fewer calls. However, we still have to keep an eye on it and keep it balanced, because we still have, as you can see, outstanding bills to still pay that we're still balancing. One thing different right now with vendors that is unique from the past is our new insurance company. Yes, we did save money, but they require a different payment plan than what we were previously on, and we are currently now paid up in full, other than some of the deductible amounts, which is outside of that premium plan. So in past years, we didn't have to do that. So the balance of claims is a little bit different, just because that amount is paid now, paid up front, and where we were spread out a little bit differently in the past. So where we can balance, outstanding claims is a little different, but it'll all wash after we get through the second distribution. So it is a little bit different this year than it has been in previous years, just for that one issue. Other than that, we do have a call with Moody's coming up. I believe it's August 15th. I believe they will be interested in this information, and then I'll probably move it out, and the banks will also be interested in this as we start the discussion of another round of TAWs for next year. And so we'll take this out even further here soon, as that conversation is about ready to start, and we'll be discussing next year's levy even before this year's levy's done, so for that purpose. So but this gets us at least to the end of the year and through the bond payment, which is Moody's primarily wanting to know. They usually want to know, make sure those bond payments get paid and how we're going to do it, and this shows them that. And then we'll extend it out, as the banks like to see the rest of the story as well as we go forward and have those discussions. So anyway, that's what I can think of right now.
Okay. Mr. Lear?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed that on the cash flow analysis, the inmate bed rental amounts differ from the inmate bed rental on your monthly report. Is there a reason for that?
Right. Because this is cash flow, the inflows are everything that's billed, which also, but when it actually comes in, it gets distributed. Some of it's salary reimbursement, some of it's overtime reimbursement, some of it's mileage reimbursement. So the monthly report is what goes into the revenue side of when you see the general fund reports and stuff, and matches up to that. And then this, for cash flow purposes, it's just considered an inflow. So anything that we get paid is looked at just for cash. And so it goes to different places for different reports. Apologize for that confusion, but that's part of how it gets distributed and how the reports reflect it after. The revenue expense reports, budget, all reflect, follow the monthly report that you see there.
So would I be accurate in saying your cash flow analysis gives us a little better picture of total inmate bed rental than the inmate bed rental monthly report? Because that, I'm seeing one figure bigger than the other, which I'm kind of happy about, but I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, I understand the confusion that the terms are the same, and I apologize for that. I probably should change on the inflow, on the cash flow report. The actual bed rental revenue is that this includes transportations and everything that goes along with it that isn't necessarily, it ends up being reimbursed down to, against the expense of that. So I'm going to circle it now. But those are good questions, and I apologize for that confusion. So you can see the difference is labor related and transportation related is the difference. So.
Mr. Legess?
Yeah, Steve, on the accounts payable side, it shows May the actual accounts payable were 3.7 million, and you're estimating in July that they'll be down to 1.7. Is that correct? We're going to pay down $2 million worth of accounts payables in 3 months?
Yeah, and if you look at the miscellaneous vendor line, vendor payments, if you follow that across, you can see where that number drops. The number in June, we paid out $2.3 million in claims. That reflects where that pay down came from and why those numbers at the bottom dropped. Those are correspondent.
I mean, that's a good sign. That's a good sign that we're paying down our accounts payable.
That 1.7 number in accounts payable is what the system actual number in the system as of yesterday.
Okay, good.
Any other questions for Mr. McCarty on any of these reports? Mr. Wheeler?
Just one statement more than a question. Just keep in mind that now that we're tying up the bow on the TAWs for this year, the discussion begins, when we start talking August, September budget next year, because we're looking at 2 million. It's $1 million less. So that should be at least in the back of your head that while things look better, in this sense that we're going to get $1 million less in as it stands to get, access to capital to operate. So the December, January, February becomes, March, April, May becomes all that tighter. So just because we have to keep thinking 8 months ahead, on this stuff.
Question on this 1.7 for the AP. Are we paying any interest or late fees on that? And I guess my question comes from, obviously we don't have a significant reserve in cash, but would it benefit us to maybe pay that down a little more if we're paying any interest on that? If we can project out that we might have an extra couple $100,000 to pay on that?
Well, the only interest accruing right now is on the TAWs. We have very little as far as our regular vendors. and the process that we have as far as what we expedite and those that go through the longer period of waiting to get paid has a lot to do with it. They're going to charge us interest, and if they're going to shut us off, we don't pay that interest. So there's not a lot of other interest accruing other than the TAW right now and the payable aspect of it.
That's good. Mr. Wheeler.
Just in a general sense, we have a stated emphasis on making sure our local vendors are paid, our painters, our contractors here that are, sole proprietors, because we realize that we don't want to use them for a bank. As much as that's really what you do when you stretch them out 120, and some of them, most are working with us very well because they know the tax cycle. They know if something happens in January, it might be a few months before that check shows up. So, but and then in the grand scheme of things, it would be great to wipe that off, but it's so tight on payroll because of other cash flow. It's really, where would that come from? We can't miss a bond payment. We can't miss a payroll. So it kind of is what it is at this point. And that's the part of the plan is once you get past 2020, we'll still be carrying the payables line that we have right now while we start to gain, so we don't have to borrow money. This payables line won't change that much in the cycle and in the system that we have to operate. It's kind of where we're at with a $4 million deficit.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Legess.
Yeah, I just had a question, Steve. Hypothetical. In your opinion, it seems like we're making significant progress, and the local banks will be down to $2 million. In your opinion, do you think that well, I guess our conversation with Moody will tell us more, but do you feel like we may be in a position that if we are in need of money, that outside sources that stayed away before may consider us a worthier risk?
It'll be better, but not yet, because between tort pension and the general fund, those three, we've made some stride in the total balances, the fund balance totals together. But until those three get us closer to a zero overall number, we probably won't be going up in our bond rating. So so it is better. I'm agreeing with that. However, it may not change the borrowing aspect yet. We have to make further strides, and we have to get, and also show it through. They like seeing all this, but they also want to see it after the audit's done as well. The final report and what actually gets officially printed. So, so yes, it's better. But as far as others wanting to do that, and it just reminded me that we ran into another issue with our what we termed as our EFT thing internally, but it was our Visa Pay program. And if you remember, it's been maybe about 2 years ago that we started that with Commerce Bank, and they, because of our bond rating and ongoing thing, and because there was a line of credit involved with that program, even though it was a small, I think it was basically $100,000. Because of our ongoing bond rating, they canceled that program on us because we're on their books with our bond rating and having to do a line of credit for us. So that just came out of the blue. I tried to argue to keep it, but that's their bank policy, and they made a call and stopped the program because of that, for us. So we're still dealing with that, but hopefully with the Moody's, it's hard to predict exactly what they'll say, but hopefully, we can begin to get like a positive, more of a neutral to positive outcome and outlook, which is saying that things are getting better, even if they don't actually raise the bond rating. So hopefully we can at least start that process, and then and then start getting it to hopefully it'll start raising here in another next year and the year after that. So and then we'll be in a better position to go out. So
Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad you remember that, Steve, because that's important to note that EFT is a great way to pay your bills because there's less paper, it's less being handled. You still have it through the audit process, obviously,
Right.
and make sure everything's checked and balanced. But we have so many accounts tied to different funds that it makes it impossible for a bank just to do like we do with paying your bills out of your bank account. It's having them auto drawn or whatever because you can't match it up. The banks don't have that ability to do that for so many different accounts. So that's why we have a third party that would gather that all into one basket. And when they cut us off, even though it ends up costing us more because now we got to handle the paper and send the check, and as we all know, every invoice is about at least $150 cost to process.
Added postage.
Yeah, all that stuff. So, I mean, man hours, the whole thing.
Sure.
Paper shuffling. So, I just want to mention that that's a good indication that we're doing better, but things like this tell us that you're still not there.
Mr. Vickery.
And I'm sure that the bond companies are well aware of the volatility of the ICE program. So that's the positive thing is the cash. The negative thing is that's hanging there is it is volatile. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other final questions for Mr. McCarty?
Just the one follow-up that I had thought of, and as the conversation went, the one thing as far as the accounts payable, and some may say, well, we got the tax distribution, why can't we just pay everybody off? If you look at the ending cash balance and follow that from left to right, the very bottom number, well, not the very bottom number, the accounts payable is very bottom, the next very number to the bottom, we're estimating $3 million balance, but understand that the two payrolls for August, are 2 million of that 3 million, if something were to happen. And so we always keep an eye on 1 to 2 payrolls ahead of time as well as, so when we're in March and April, when you see those below $1 million, ending a month without the next payroll, that's extremely tight and extremely nerve-wracking and very dangerous as far as the timing, because we can't dictate when the state and other people pay us. Even though we can look at averages, there's no indication. So we always keep an eye on what the balance is going forward and what's coming up, and so we have to keep the best balance we can with accounts payable. And unfortunately, we can never get caught up and make everybody perfectly happy because it's a constant battle. Even though it's easier right now, it's still because again, the general fund, the fund balance is negative, and so that means everything we do comes from borrowed money. So we have to watch how that borrowed money gets used and what's coming up. So so if you get asked by a vendor or through the discussion as for the department heads as well as the board members, it's an ever-going balancing act. It just, there's less calls right now because we are probably 75 days to 90 days, so it's way better than 120, but still get some of those calls for those that are in there, and try to get them back to within 60. So that just in a bigger picture, just wanted to share that for explanation wise as we go forward. So.
Mr. Wheeler.
I had one thing too. It's on your HRA fund detail. It occurred to me to at least to mention this. We continually see the averages going down, and we're seeing, since the county has so many plan choices, that people are choosing plans that don't necessarily involve the HRA to both save them money and efficiencies. Whether it's the HMO option or all these different plan options out there, the county went to great length to come up with different options to help save both the employees and the county money. And since the HRA was instituted, that option, we did some rough numbers. Our insurance premiums would have been up 50-60% if we wouldn't have made that change. And I think the employees' premium has only gone up roughly 8 to 10%. I'd have to check that number, but it's low. It's either single or low double digits. So what we have done is we had to increase the deductible in a minor way, but we were able to keep the employees' costs down on their health plans and offer them more plans to better suit their needs. So in the era of the Affordable Care Act and all the increased expenses that we've seen, the county, and I worked in the insurance committee, worked very hard on this to put pen to paper and to figure out what were the best options. So, I hear, it's grumbling. Nobody likes to pay more, but you would have paid a lot more and got a lot less if we wouldn't have done these changes over the past 4 years. So I had to mention that, because when I see this HRA, it's a good thing that monthly payout is going down. It means more people are into fully insured plans, and that better suits their needs. So.
All right, any final questions? All right, thanks, Steve. And then we will move on to item number 10, which is the monthly update from our sheriff, Mr. Downey. Sure.
Good morning. Hopefully I should be brief. As you've seen by the ICE numbers, we are staying fairly consistent. And to add on to what Steve indicated in Mr. Lear's question, yeah, those additional revenues are from salaries, mileage. What else do we get reimbursed for? Salaries and mileage, basically. Some food. When ICE and our process is basically that throughout the week, ICE transfers a number of individuals here, and then we are the staging area for deportation. And when they come in here, those that come in here on Thursday night, because we do have some that come in on Thursday night, we provide those meals for them for the day, and we do get reimbursed for that as well. So that's money that we've never taken credit for. We've always focused on a housing number. We've never really said, oh, we also get reimbursed X amount for salaries, X amount for fuel, and now the added meals. And not that we're looking to take credit for anything, but that is additional revenue, and that's why those numbers are different. And I don't know that they need to be altered at all. I mean, that's just the way it is. Yeah. So those numbers are staying consistent. And actually, we've started now. About a month ago, we were approved by ICE because of our inspection to be able to take new arrests. And this past weekend was the first weekend that it really hit us significantly, where I believe over the weekend they brought in about 15 new detainees who were picked up over the weekend. That is something new for us. I would imagine that trend would start to increase a little bit as, and depending on what side of the fence you're on, as they start to go after sanctuary cities, I would imagine that number will go up. The advantage we have is our location. And right now, a new arrest, a month ago, if ICE made an arrest, they could make an arrest in Northwest Indiana and have to bring that individual to McHenry County, which is about a 2-hour trip one way. Well, now they're about 45 minutes away. They can bring them to Kankakee. So ICE is very happy about having the location close by so that they can bring them right to Kankakee. So that's something that we've worked toward since we started. And that's finally starting to come to fruition. So that's been a huge help. I know I told you guys a while back about our VCT, which is the video connection from Jerome Combs to the Chicago ICE office. One of these days I'll learn about dealing with the federal government, that it doesn't happen overnight, but it has now happened 8 months later or whatever from, I think, the time that we told you that it was going to happen. So we are now hooked up with the courtrooms in the ICE building in Chicago. So we are now seeing our individuals go to court right from our building. So that what that does is we don't have to transfer those individuals to McHenry County anymore. They can stay here, which obviously benefits us money-wise. So those are some positives. Questions on anything going on with ICE?
Mr. Lear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at some of these figures again, and I'm still having a little bit of question. If I look at the inmate bed rental in November report and the report in June, that number has remained fairly consistent in terms of dollars. For some reason, I had an impression that our total census had gone up, but maybe I'm not sure what all the elements are in terms of census compared to inmate bed rental. The November fiscal year 2016, we've got a dollar amount of 704,000 and some change. June fiscal year 2017, it's 703. Now,
Comparison with the month of June.
no, I'm comparing the total dollars we're getting hasn't changed much since November. Has our total number of inmates changed?
Well, one of the things that happens is, as we are a staging area for ICE, and one of those things, one of the drawbacks that we're actually now with being able to take new arrests on the weekend will change a little bit. So what normally happens, Mr. Lear, is during the week, ICE will transfer X amount of detainees to our building. So we may get up to upwards of 150, 160. And then when they get deported, on that day that they leave, we may lose 60. So then from that Friday when we lose them to the following Friday, that number continually increases. So, and what we were waiting on was the ability to take the new arrests. So we are there now. And we only had, remember, from December or October when we started this, we only had a certain number of beds that we were allowed to house ICE because we need to keep them separate. Well, now, back in, I believe, March, we have expanded that so that we do have another housing unit available to take the overflow. So I would look for those numbers to go up. I mean, you know, when I say we've stayed consistent, we have stayed consistent from December basically through June. Obviously, we have room. ICE knows we have room. So now that we can take the new arrest, I would look for that number to increase slightly. So
I still think it's a great program. I'm just trying to make sure I understand it.
And it's worked out very well. You know, people, and I don't know if somebody was talking about Winnebago. There was a possibility that Winnebago County was that ICE actually recruited Winnebago to get involved in this program. Winnebago started it, got involved in it, saw the work that was involved with it, and said, we don't want any part of it. We're not in that position to do that. So, and nor would we. You know, there's, again, with what we've got and what we've done, there's been a lot of hard work put in by a lot of good people that have made this program work, and we'll continue to do that until they tell us no. And Mr. Vickery brought up a good point. The volatility of any inmate housing is just what it is. It's very volatile. So, you know, the best case scenario would be that there would be no volatility, but that's something that's not going away. And we've been dealing with it since 2005. Some have been really good. And as you know, the last couple have been not so good. But we try to make ourselves attractive. And I believe we are, and I think ICE is happy with us, and I stay in contact with the Chicago office pretty regularly. It's good to have those contacts that are there to tell us what's going on, that we can report back to you guys. So whatever they report to me, I'll report to you, whether it's good news or bad news. So hope the good news keeps coming. Any other questions?
Thank you, Chairman. In the news, it talks about the border crossings have been greatly reduced. Is that going to impact you?
No, it shouldn't, because they started out, when we started out, that was the reason that ICE needed all the beds, was they were having all these border crossers. I mean, there's some philosophies, and I don't want to get into a big political discussion because it's not the place, but there were some philosophies as to why that was happening, because there was an imminent presidential election coming up and all that. But now there are so many that are already here that now it's just a matter of getting these people, picking them up, and I would imagine that until there's a new president, that's probably not going to change.
Mr. Jess.
Yeah, Mike, I think it should be noted too that the ones they're picking up are the bad guys.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're not going after. Yeah, I mean they are going after bad guys. They're doing roundups for criminals.
Yeah,
which is what they said they'd do.
I mean, it's almost laughable the way the liberal press shows them on TV arresting guys and they're tearing them away from their kids and all that. They don't explain to you that whether he's got kids or whatever, that's sad, but the fact remains they're getting him because he's wanted,
There was and I don't know if anybody saw it, I don't even remember the TV show it was on, but somebody asked me about it. They said, hey, I saw Kankakee. Oh, it was on 60 Minutes. They said, Kankakee made 60 Minutes. And I'm like, what? God. And so they talked about this guy over in Indiana, and he was here for 20 years. He owned a restaurant, and he had all these customers that just loved him, and he'd never done anything wrong, and they arrested him. Well, he did end up in our facility and got deported. And we don't have any control over that. And as we tell those that are really not so pro ICE and not for immigration or not for deporting these people, we're just housing them. I mean, they can house them in a number of places. Yeah. We're just housing them. If they tell us not to and they don't want to arrest them anymore, then that's something we'll have to deal with as a board and a county and go from there. But that's what we're doing right now. So, real quick, we have some paper service that we're dealing with right now. Some of you saw in the paper that we're serving gang members summons to sue, which obviously is something that will hamper the gang's efforts. It's good. The problem is our deputies have to go serve these people, and we got a lot of papers. The timing of it, which is no fault of anybody's, we also have delinquent tax papers that we're serving right now. So we have actually called, for the last 2 days, we've called overtime to have our deputies go serve these papers because there are timelines and there are deadlines on these papers. So, the good news is on the delinquent tax papers, we're getting paid for it. Obviously, these attorneys are paying. So with our increased fees, that'll be a benefit. The summons from the state's attorney's office, we're not getting paid for, but it's still our job and we're still doing it. So, we'll continue to do that till we get those papers served. And, our paper service continues to go up. I would like and possibly work with Steve or Jake and say, what the change in our fees in our civil process, how that has affected some of the cash that's coming in because those fees increased significantly. And I can tell you the Chicago lawyers that we deal with, not one of them even questioned it. I mean, because we were so far below what it costs to serve papers up north. So that's a good thing. That's all I got.
Mr. Lujess?
Mike, just quickly so we can straighten this thing out.
Yes, 4.
Huh?
There's 4 on there.
I forgot what the question was.
There's four of that number are people who are on our books who are not getting paid, not getting benefits.
Okay.
Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do, and not as a micromanaging aspect, but as far as a cash flow aspect, we monitor like all overtime, and it goes up and down based on fluctuations, and it went down dramatically last month. And one of the things is we've always talked about this, getting more full-time COs out there, and part of as I remember, part of the conversation is that they don't have the class to take in the summertime.
No, there's no class in the summer.
There's no class, so we're kind of held back by when that next class could be. So
September.
It's September. Mm-hmm. So do you expect a round of hiring before then to?
Yes, we actually tested a few weeks ago, and there's been a group that's been polygraphed, So I don't know what numbers we're talking yet, and we're kind of gauging it by the overtime and trying to figure that cost out. But yeah,
Sure.
there'll be a couple.
Well, I think you know that this board supports the full staffing. You know,
Oh, yeah.
That resource on the CO side, we'll make sure that it's there because in the end it saves us money because we don't have the OT.
Right.
You know, but it has to be obviously trained people and seasoned to a degree.
We and I know Lynn obviously wouldn't have this because we just got it today, but we had one resign today, who unfortunately had only been there he was one of the first ones we hired when we started with ICE, and so he's been to school, trained, and gone, and that's the unfortunate part that you spend that money to train them and they go. And to his credit, I mean, he left for a higher paying job outside of law enforcement. You can't fault the guy for that.
Well, I was hoping he could maybe serve some gang members papers, but I guess that's not possible. And by the way, are those guys ready and easy to find?
Well, when they're in jail, they are.
Okay, good answer.
Yeah. So those are the first ones we got served.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Thank you.
One second, Mr. Vicker.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, in a meeting the other day, I think there's 4. They're bringing on 4.
That might be right. Yeah, that could be
I think
right.
There's 4 that they've screened to a
Yes.
certain point. Looks like we're going to get an increase there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other final questions for Sheriff Downey? Yes, Mr. Alcala.
Thank you. One final one. When you serve them outside of jail, do they disappear?
No.
They don't.
No, there's some rules. Are you talking about the gang members?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some rules associated with those papers, and Deb can probably explain it a little better. But they're not supposed to be able to associate with each other. We wish it were that easy that they disappear. If that were the case, we'd serve a lot of papers. And I have a list of people I'd like to serve papers to. But no.
Are any county board members on there?
All right. Yes, Mr. Vicker.
Just a question. Are we losing a long-term resident there? Is that it?
We are. That
what I understand.
on the front page, and people are going to criticize who's ever in office. I get it. This is a case I started at the jail in 1995, and this individual was arrested in 1996, I believe, and he is in our custody today. He has been to prison 2 or 3 times and then brought back because of errors in his sentencing or whatever the situations were. He was ordered back here to face another trial. So I have dealt with him. He's got, let's put it this way, he's got more seniority than 3/4 of my staff. So we're looking to test him when he gets out. But kidding.
Any final questions, Sheriff? All right. Thank you.
Good luck. Let us know if you need some.
Appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Any other business to be brought before the committee? Yes, Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and this is intentionally to embarrass you. Mr. Johnson, this will be his final meeting with this committee and this board, and he has informed me that he is, to his credit, is completely involved with the business of his current real employment, and the time has been this has been suffering on this end to be able to commit the time necessary here, and he feels this is best to move on and focus on the day job and the family. And I just wanted to say that's effective on the 1st of the month, and so he won't be here for the next board meeting. I just want to say thank you. It's been a pleasure to work with you and to have your help and your financial acumen on this committee and the board in general.
I appreciate that. And I haven't been here too long, just a little over 2 years. We appreciated the time on the board. Learned a lot. Appreciated getting to know y'all. And as Mr. Wheeler said, it was a tough decision. The final decision was that, I didn't feel like I could commit the time necessary to be successful in this position, even on the board when I first was asked to be appointed. I appreciated the opportunity, and just maybe at the time didn't fully realize the time commitment it would take. And for the county employees, for you board members and the rest of the community, I didn't think it was fair to serve in the role when I wasn't able to give it my the time and effort necessary to be to do a good job in the role. So, but I do appreciate the time here. Appreciate your support. Appreciate getting to know everyone, and I've enjoyed the experience. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other business to be brought? If there is none, we'll move to the old new business. And I believe Mr. Wheeler would like to talk about the Pembroke Township.
Yes,
revolving
just
loan.
briefly, this is not going to be an action item today. I know at our last full board meeting, we had brought up a few things about the revolving loan. We were going to write that off for Hopkins Park. So I just wanted to let you know that I've included in your packet basically the invoices, the claims, everything associated with that. That was part of the revolving loan fund file that I received when I became chairman. And so if you wanted to look through that and kind of match things up, this is public record and everything can be found. So we didn't want to really comment on this or move forward. I just wanted to let the board members have this to think about. At a later time, this is going to come back up for various reasons. But for right now, I'm asking that we just kind of move on from this, and then we'll bring it back to finance when a few other situations kind of settle out.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Any other old or new business to be brought before the committee? If there is none, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn? Mr. Ritter, second Mr. Payton. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.